rolling it.
Okay. Hello, dear listeners. There's going to be no hooty hoo for you today.
Hooty hoo.
We have to get it out in the open. Tony, what is Tony's code name?
We don't have one. Wait, do we?
They had something and now I don't remember what it is. I feel like Tony had.
We apologize,
Their
Tony.
Royal Majesty or something.
So, yeah.
The Southern something. I think it was...
The mouth of the South.
The mouth from the South, yeah. The mouth from the South is not with us today. So, well, that was a great podcast, everyone. We'll wrap it up right now.
So this is going to be a really different tone, you guys.
Indeed. But no, we miss you, Tony. We know you will listen to this. We miss you.
I can't believe this is the first podcast we're recording after Tony was on the panel about doing the library podcast, and now Tony's not here. Like, it just feels like
Dear all MLA friends. Yeah. Oops.
Twisting that irony knife.
We will persevere.
Oh, by the way, fun fact, they're not in the book.
Okay.
The twins are not in the book.
Okay.
Just for sake of structure, the trauma aside of not having Tony, what are we all reading, watching, playing, listening to, building, contemplating? I don't know, maybe you're not reading a book, maybe you're building a shelf. I don't know. Treat yourself.
Have you met me? Even when I was in the middle of a show, I was reading a book.
This is fair. I thought you were going to make a joke. Like, seriously, do you know how I am with, like, tools and sharp-edged things? Like, no. She cut herself with a banana, y'all.
Okay, but I used a power saw and still have all 10 fingers, so...
What did you cut yourself with the other day?
What did I cut myself with the other day?
It was like a Band-Aid or something.
Band-Aids are supposed to do the opposite of that.
I did stab myself really gently pulling a sign off of one of the sideboards.
That's what it was. It was the sideboard.
And just had like a very slight nick in my hand.
Jen, what are you reading?
I am reading a book called Great or Nothing, which is a new young adult release, conveniently enough for the topic of this podcast.
But
4 different authors whose names I think I remember. I believe it is Joy McCullough, Caroline Tung Richardson, Jessica Spotswood, and Tess Sharp.
What is it called again?
Great or Nothing. It is a retelling of Little Women set in World War II.
Oh, that one!
And Jo's a lesbian.
Yes.
As she deserves to be. I love it. So, like, I love Little Women to begin with. I also do love me a historical fiction novel set in World War II. And this is a really good, you can really easily insert...
Authors.
Yes. Hey, I did get them right.
Yeah.
You really can very easily update the war story of Little Women into being a war story of World War II.
Okay, sidetrack Erin. My Erin at home, I did this noise to her the other day, and she's like, what? I'm like, we've been together like how many years, and I've never went yee in front of you?
Yee is such a classic. Anyways.
Erin, what are you doing? What are you playing? What are you watching?
So, for those who know me very well or have listened to me rant about it for the past, week or so for now, I've gotten off my Sims fixation, and now I am obsessed or hyper fixated on Crusader Kings 3, which is a giant real-time strategy game set in medieval times. So you can start either in 1066 or 867, I believe. Don't quote me on the actual start years. I've been starting in 867 the whole entire time because I have a dream of uniting the entirety of Ireland together, but the Norse keep attacking me, and it's horrible, and I hate it. But anyways, so essentially you can start out as a random person within history, or you can create your own ruler if you want. You can take over one of the places. And the whole entire game is to create a dynasty and, become the most illustrious, prestigious person ever, or family ever, and create your own dynasty. Or you could, be me and want to take over Ireland, or you can be somebody else and want to take over the Holy Roman Empire. The Mongols invade in 1200, which, decimates the whole entire map at some point. I literally have the Norse declaring war on me every other day of the week.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And I haven't even done anything. I focused only on my little tiny island, but because Jarl Ivar the Boneless has, like, Dublin specifically, everyone decided they want to crusade my place. Like, how rude.
Is the bubonic plague going to come into play at some point?
I have no idea, actually. I haven't actually got that far.
We'll find out.
That's the 1100s, though, so I'm not entirely sure if the bubonic plague reached up there. Yeah, because I'm starting out in Ireland, I'm not sure. I'd have to actually double check and research that. But I know, it probably ransacks like around like Italy area at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because literally the whole entire thing, you can murder like somebody, you can take over you can fabricate eyes on somebody.
Okay.
I literally plotted to kill somebody's wife and then turned around and fabricated a hook on their brother so that they would step down so I could step up as queen. So, I mean, possibilities are endless. The game's not broken at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Grant, what are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm sitting right here.
What are you reading?
I just started reading Young God by Catherine Fawn Morris. It's a super short book, so I probably could finish it last night, but I'm distracted easily. It's about...
Understood.
How do I describe it? It's about a 13-year-old girl and who becomes a girl boss in the most unsettling way possible.
A girl boss in what context,
I don't...
Grant?
See, that's a surprise. You have to read it yourself. But, no, you kind of know what you're in for from, like, the first chapter,
What is this called?
It is very... Young God.
Young God.
It is very propulsive. Like, it just doesn't give you any breathing time. But, yeah, read it. See what I mean.
I'm going to have to now, yes.
By who?
Andy.
Catherine Fawn.
I am 45 minutes away from being finished with How to Be Perfect by Michael Schur, the creator of The Good Place. And we've talked about it a couple times. If you like The Good Place and you like The Office and Parks and Rec, even though it's not really a comedy book, it's infused with enough of his flavor that you're going to find yourself chuckling, particularly when you get to the footnotes.
And if you didn't like The Good Place, you're not allowed to listen to our podcast
Right,
anymore.
yeah, just turn it off, please. We'll wait. Okay, good. We can move on. But no, it's also, as an audiobook, it's narrated in part to, like, with the cast of The Good Place. It's a deep dive into moral ethics and philosophy. It's a bit more...
Would it paralyze Chidi to read this book?
No, like, he's too smart for that.
Okay.
But it forces you, like, if you guys remember the trolley dilemma in The Good Place, yes. This book is right up your alley. It's really fascinating, but it's just flavorful enough as an audiobook performance and writing style that you don't feel like you're sitting in some introductory course in college and falling asleep. Definitely worth your time. I started today because I hate myself. Off the Edge, Flat Earthers, Conspiracy Culture, and Why People Will Believe Anything.
How do you read that without just, like...
By Kelly Weil. I made it through The Storm Is Upon Us, which is about QAnon, and thank you, Michael Rothschild, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Kelly Weil wrote this book, Off the Edge. I'm 10 pages into it, and I'm kind of like...
You've already started it?
Yeah.
I literally brought this book out at, like, when I came in today at noon and then checked it in. And I come back downstairs, he's already got it.
Yeah, that sounds like
So
Andy.
he must have started it during lunch.
I did.
That sounds like Andy, yeah.
I had to.
That tracks.
Hopefully I don't... We'll see the state of my mood when I'm done. It's not a large book.
No,
so.
it's really not. But my brain was even just reading the inside cover / like staring at it, and my brain could not comprehend when I was processing it the other day. So.
Are you afraid of getting done with the book and somehow becoming dumber from having read it, or?
No, he's gonna throw the book out the window.
Hey, that's
coming up.
Hey.
Andy's preparing.
Which actually, you think about that, like, on the topic of that book, I can think about probably 5 books in the last year that make me want to throw them out the window. I feel like I needed to read them out of responsibility. There's that one about the culture warlords where a Jewish journalist tackles white supremacy in the dark web.
Are any of them young adult?
Culture warlords, maybe.
Thank you for trying to circle us back.
I did try. Are any of them young adult fiction?
No.
Probably
Well-
maybe Codename Verity.
Not in the past couple. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that could be. So yes, we keep saying the word YA or the words young adult and YA. Hint: this is a follow-up to a previous podcast where we tackled middle grade fiction.
Previous podcast. It was
The
last
the
episode.
very last one.
I am exhausted. I am tired. I have a very short-term memory right now.
Congratulations. So do I.
Okay.
You were
Dory.
there a couple weeks ago.
Okay, Dory.
Ooh, squirrel.
Okay.
Yes. So, what is YA? What is young adult?
What is YA?
Teen librarian
I mean-
extraordinaire.
Kind of the next sort of step up, quote unquote, from middle grade fiction. I would say 13's a little young, maybe we're like 14, 15 baseline, pushing into easily 19, 20 for protagonists now. I do maintain the line that once you're into your early 20s, it is no longer a young adult novel. It is what they're trying to brand as new adult or just even a regular adult novel. Gasp. But I would say kind of once, if you're outside of about your freshman year of college, it's no longer a young adult novel.
Are you talking about like protagonist age?
Protagonist age.
Okay, I was like, listen, if I'm
Yeah.
reading a young adult
Yeah.
novel, but I'm in my 20s, it's still a young adult
Yes.
novel.
Any readers of any age can read a young adult novel, but like protagonist main age of the characters in the book should be, I would say, no more than a freshman in college.
I mean, technically at that point doesn't. So this is gonna be the dumbest question in the plane, but you'll
Okay.
understand what I mean when I say it. So what you're saying is, by that definition / the middle grade definition that we were talking about the other day, Percy starts out at 12, so he starts in blatant middle grade, but by the time the series ends, he's like 16, 17. So you could peacefully say Percy Jackson transfers from middle grade to YA.
Age-wise, you could. For the tone of Percy Jackson specifically,
I realize the tone puts it blankly
like
in
they
middle
stay
grade.
middle grade.
But if you,
just
like-
tonally, if you were working solely off character age, yes, Percy Jackson and then the follow-up series do turn into more of a young adult series. But the tone, the writing style that Rick uses,
Right.
keeps it more appropriate for that younger age. So yes, character
But if
age
we're
is
just
not the
going-
only thing to be working off of.
Yeah.
Like, as we were saying in middle grade, like, it's a good introduction to certain issues of the day, but keeping them very accessible for children. I feel like, again, young adult moves it that one step farther, can dive into more complexities of issues in a way that a book for a 12-year-old cannot. Maybe still not in a way that a book for a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old or a 70-year-old can, but why still has a shift in how it can handle certain topics.
I was glossing over an article. You saw me reading a couple articles
I
today.
sure did.
And one was, does sex belong in YA? And that's not a direct question, but it was like, it was kind of an interesting opinion piece that I was actually reading.
I mean, I can give an answer. It's not necessarily the correct answer. It will be my answer.
Opinions are
I feel like your answer is
expressly our own, not that of Adrian District Library as a whole. So if you don't like anything we say, send hate mail anyway.
Yes.
We are awaiting the day we get a
One of
hate
these
mail.
days.
When we finally get hate mail, I'm literally gonna throw us a party.
We're gonna find it.
143 East Maumee, that's Maumee Street, Adrian, Michigan.
49221.
Thank you.
We're gonna frame it in the break room.
We
Oh my
really
God.
are.
Yes.
Or you can
yes.
email us. Go
That's
to
on the website.
Yes, and then we will still print it out and frame it
It will still get
anyways.
But does it belong? There's, like, what are other, like, I mean, not just sex, but, like, what do you think are some of those more advanced, complex topics that...
I mean, I think when you start getting into YA, like, you hear more about characters drinking, characters potentially, if not doing drugs, at least being more aware that, like, possibly their friends have
Or
done
that they
drugs.
exist.
That drugs exist in the world.
Oh, come on. When I was a teen, I didn't drink at all. Come on. And teens do not drink. This is
Teen
an
drinking.
abomination.
It's very bad.
Teen drinking. Nobody's ever written an issue book about that.
But, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I forget what I was going to say. Continue.
I feel like that's the Court of Thorns and Roses, like, question
Yeah, but
at
like
that
I think
point.
diving into sex and wanting to have it or not wanting to have it or feeling like you should have had it already and have not is
Yeah.
very much like a YA topic. Again, with sort of drinking, partying, friendships developing in weird directions, relationships with romantic partners or family members or things like that, developing in weird directions or unexpected directions, or realizing for the first time that like you are a separate entity from your parents, and that you may have different opinions than other people you have respected in your life have. And
When you're
how you
deconstructing your own ideals and reforming
realizing,
yourself.
yes, that your ideals do not have to be a direct inheritance from your parents, from your older siblings, from your grandparents, from your other family members, or even from your own friends,
Yeah.
that you can step out and have some of that.
I think did you?
No, I was just gonna say I think it's not so much, you know, should there be or should there not be like sex and other topics in YA novels. It's more so how it's approached.
Yes, I think that's kind of the real sticking point, is like, as much as, you know, I don't want to say pro-sex in YA novels in the sense of sounding like pervert, but like, yes, I think it's realistic to write teens who have sex and who enjoy having sex. I think it's realistic to write teens who have sex and maybe either regret it or realize it was not the right time at the moment. I'm not saying to the point of sexual assault. I'm just saying, reflecting back on, was that a good choice for me at this time?
There was
I think it's all right to write young adult novels where they don't have sex, because either for asexual teens or just for teens who are more, what is the word I'm looking for? Like abstaining or something like that, who are maybe waiting till marriage if that's something they want to do. All of that spectrum is valid to have. I do think and like, it's a weird line to be discussing as an adult, because also in a book where a teen is having sex and enjoying it, if they describe it in positive terms or possibly sexier terms, yes. But to the point where like an adult romance novel might be describing how people's genitalia is or something like that, like I think that is best held off until adult fiction.
Like the minute you said that, my mind went to A League of Their Own a little bit. Remember the scene where they're describing the
No, because I've never seen A League of Their Own.
Listen, which is a different problem.
Yeah.
In simple terms, we can have smut, but we can't have the very explicit smut. In terms of AO3 tags, we can have an M rating, but we can't have an E rating.
And even an M might be pushing it, just depending on how it's getting described. But
that opinion piece that I was reading through earlier also made a good point, that it can serve sexual activity within a YA book and serve as a platform for teaching. You kind of said it in a different word, but like bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
And really important here, consent.
Consent.
Can display a model for
consent, bodily
proper
autonomy, protection.
Yeah, and even just sort of a healthy, like, as much as sex education should be taught in a formal way, it's not always, or it's taught differently in different areas of the state, country,
Literally
world,
every
etc.
school does it differently, and you're never going to get like one specific way of it
that. Even if
happening.
we just hear like, hey, I made sure my boyfriend used a condom in a young adult novel, is kind of important for a teen to come across, to see that, again, they might not ever want to have that conversation with a real life person, a parent, a friend, a teacher, a mentor, whatever, but if they can do, oh, hey, this character I like and respect in this book that I was reading, verbally said, we need to use condoms. Like, hey, maybe that's not weird for me to say if that's something that comes up for me in real life.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it's also a little awkward whenever you get that talk from either your teacher or your family member. Sometimes it's a little bit more awkward to hear that.
Yeah, like, I don't think fiction should be, like, the full-on substitute for sex education.
No, but
at
like,
least if things can get shoved on in there.
It's a little bit better easement into that whole entire situation than if your parent just immediately goes, we need to talk about this today, and then you're like, oh my god, I'm not prepared for this at all.
Could be like that little, I can't remember word from word, but you've seen Mean Girls, the gym teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get pregnant and die.
If you have sex, you will get pregnant and die. Yes. Maybe a little more descriptive than that.
That is literally abstinence.
Could have been in the Middle Ages appropriate.
Yeah.
But one of the benchmarks that I keep picking up on for YA is that it's I'm going to use coming of age, but it's a very transformative kind of thing, where someone undergoes a process or a journey and they come out of it with a little bit deeper insights and so on.
Yeah, like I think I saw something to that effect when I was kind of reading over your shoulder one of those articles you had found earlier today. Something that like people tend to like young adult fiction more because there is a very definite, like, traceable journey for the characters.
Yeah.
It is not so focused on, like, style and grammar as a lot of especially adult literary fiction, which we all know I hate. But I'm going to say it anyways, like, as a lot of adult literary fiction tends to get preoccupied with, like, how they're transforming the nature of the sentence. And I'm like, I don't care. Was it a good sentence? Did it move the story?
Mm-hmm.
Is the sentence beautiful? Cool, but can I keep my attention?
Yeah. Did it
Absolutely
do
not.
Something?
Like,
Are you
am I
just-
going
yeah.
somewhere?
Are you just reveling in how beautifully you wrote that sentence, or was that actually a good sentence?
Are we basking about the Battle of Waterloo, or am I actually doing something for
moving the story along, Hugo?
I like literary fiction.
I know you do. Which is why we are good foils for each other.
So I didn't know if that was Lord Ish or if it was Lord Eggington.
Lord Eggington is dead. When will you learn?
Stop bringing it up, Andy. You're hurting us.
We need to have a seance and talk to Lord Eggington.
And
I'll go get the Ouija board. I'll be back.
I will throw it out there, not all adult literary fiction, but it feels like the stuff that gets talked about the most is some of the stuff where I'm like, okay, cool, you wrote 500 pages about someone who should have gotten a divorce 200 pages ago.
Yeah. Anne Rice, I love you. But she's descriptive, and her prose it's very
Yes, and that's
drawn out.
And
But
I
I
do
do
love when
that.
somebody can turn a beautiful sentence as
Yeah.
well. I'm not a complete Philistine.
Rip.
Like sometimes I get done reading, I'm like, oh, that was a good chapter. It was all about a staircase?
Yeah.
What in the name of...
What happened again?
Why?
But yeah, we talked about that transformative journey, clear journey. There's also within it, and we're kind of talking about this, but put more of a label on it. There's a relatability, that hallmark too of YA fiction, where people, like, young people, they want to see themselves in the story, and they want to see someone like tackling high school woes, or maybe a pregnancy scare, or
And
maybe
or fighting dragons.
or which that crosses over a little bit.
Yeah.
It deals with, like, that was a good thing I picked up on some time ago, where they're talking about they like that relatability, but where it's not necessarily like real world relatability in terms of high school. You know, theater, you're in dance, you're in a sport.
I mean, essentially, isn't technically high school that giant dragon that you're fighting
could
in the
be.
fantasy novel?
Sure is.
The emotional
like, there's like
content
a
is there.
connection that you can get from that,
Yeah.
going like, hey, I'm fighting this giant dragon right now in this novel. Meanwhile, at the same time, I'm fighting with, deconstructing my ideals. That's a giant dragon. Going to high school's a giant dragon.
You can still
There's
have-
a bully that's possibly my giant dragon.
You can still have friend drama when you're learning how to fight wizards and stuff like that.
Yes.
Now, are there any other kind of things that hallmarks or anything that makes YA stand apart from other genres? I mean, particularly adult fiction, because we could reflect a little bit on middle grade fiction too. I think we've already talked about a little bit, like the developing the complexities.
Yeah.
Become, but like, how does it stand apart from adult fiction? I mean, other than like this intense, this like dense prose that frequently sometimes we find in great to bad Erin Morgenstern, fiction.
Right.
But I'll tag her.
Please don't.
But yeah,
She'll be our
what
first
else?
hate
What
mail.
else makes YA stand out?
Oh, gosh.
I think as much as I was sort of saying it doesn't need to do this, I think there is a sort of didacticism to young adult fiction. Like, there is usually some kind of lesson to be learned at the end of the book, or somebody has actually had like a character development moment. There are like, certain stages that get hit that don't always happen in adult fiction because they don't need to. Like, by the time you become an adult, you've solidified a little more of your personality and your moral code and all of that kind of thing. Where there's a lot of fun room to play with like moral grayness in adult fiction that I think when it gets played with in YA fiction, it gets everyone up in arms because, like, we're teaching the children that murder might be okay sometimes.
But, like, listen, that's like the fun type of YA fiction, though.
Yes.
If you touch on the morally great things, you learn that not everything's black and white as, you're supposed to be.
Yes.
You learn to question.
That's like halfway through, like, reading some type of book where there's a bad guy and the good guy. You always see everyone flocking towards the bad guys by the end of the whole entire series in the fandom because they're like, this is a black and white, but what if
What if it
this
wasn't?
is a thing? throwing some Harry.
Yeah, like I think that's getting developed more. Like I think YA fiction is getting more, having more fun with the moral grayness of things as it continues to develop. But I think if you look back farther, like there is sort of a very distinct, like, good person, bad person, good situation, bad situation that happens.
You're literally talking about almost every single paranormal romance novel from like the 2000s.
Yep. This one's the good boy. He plays football and has a band.
This is
and this
the bad
one is
boy.
the bad boy. He's from the wrong side of the tracks and wears a leather jacket. The bad
Or
boy
skateboards, or
is going
does
to-
some type
yeah.
of thing, or, you know.
Yeah. The bad boy is going to get you addicted to cocaine. The good boy will propose to you at the prom. Am I wrong?
No! Having read those types of novels, you're absolutely not. Definitely not.
Is that what you're going to tell your child? If you ever have a child, I want you. I want to be the fly on the wall when you tell your child, you know, the good person will get you. You know, you'll go to prom with that person. They'll invite you to prom with the bad person. Cocaine. I'm just.
Yeah, that's what the Lifetime channel is going to
And
teach them.
you're Mrs. Popper
Yes.
voice.
Which is my regular voice. I didn't do a voice.
Jen's gonna have her kids, and she's gonna be like, "Oh, well, I guess gotta have this conversation now. Let me call Andy.
When I
put
was
him on mute so he,
Yes.
If you do
we
that,
can't
please,
hear
yeah,
him.
we
It's
will
just-
stay in contact.
As I tell my children, when I was alive during the French Revolution. God, that was the best day. That's very off topic.
It's
I mean, technically. Continuing.
I had some. Like, I can't remember where it was going to go. I had a thought. It's kind of talked about mentally. I was thinking about the history. I read an article probably a couple weeks ago when I first opened up maybe a month and a half ago, the document, the Google Doc, and because I never really got into the R.L. Stein books, but how
Goosebumps?
young adult literature was very realism, grounded in realism until the 80s.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of these books, I didn't read in the 80s or 90s. I read young adult, but I think I progressed really quick to the fiction I probably didn't fully comprehend because I wanted to seem smarter than, other people. But who has read, what other varieties of young adult fiction? We have Supernatural, Rot and Ruin, or the kind of the zombie apocalypse stuff. We have the R.L. Stein books.
I mean, there was the vampire era.
Wait, what do you mean?
The vampire.
You might have heard of this series called Twilight.
Literally, probably.
I'm a 41-year-old man. I will not debase myself by reading this garbage YA lit that you call Twilight.
Did we
literally read
not do an
Midnight
entire
Sun.
Twilight episode
You
already?
literally suggested the Twilight episode.
Actually, yeah, it was good. But
Let's see. There was the vampire era.
Yeah, which turned into the fairy era, which is having a renaissance.
Yeah, there was a paranormal romance era, and the whole entire thing that you get with the paranormal romance era is love triangle and some type of supernatural creature. Random girl gets pulled into their universe and is stuck between both of them and can't choose, and then ends up picking the bad boy. Almost all the time.
Almost exclusively.
I think we have to make an official timeline on the whiteboard behind it.
That is literally the
you go right from-
2000 age.
Yeah.
Right from as you can see, we go from the fairy age
That's
to
the 2010,
we knock it back and we start with The Outsiders, or even, did you guys see there was a book
The
article that I thought I had put?
something.
17th Summer, which was apparently in the 40s, which I've barely heard of. Into The Outsiders, into the 80s, Sweet Valley High era of young adult fiction.
I can't believe I'm writing this up.
Yeah.
So we have the Outsiders over here, and then it literally turns around
into the very realism heavy early to late 2000s, your John Greens and your Sarah Dessens of the universe, into Stephanie Meyer and everything has to have a vampire, into more general werewolves, fairies. Mermaids never really took off, but
no, but I did
vampires,
read a few.
werewolves,
There were
fairies.
Greek gods,
Greek gods, there
fallen
were
angels with
fallen angels.
huge. And then it got more into
and we're exploding back into realism, I feel, And even back into regular fantasy, but we are exploding them into much more diverse takes than we were seeing in the 2010s and the early 2000s. Like, we're finally seeing black people, we're seeing Asian people, we're seeing queer people.
Right.
We are seeing much more intersectionality in how we are playing with the tropes now. But all of the good tropes are coming back.
It's basically like fashion, you know, like how it cycles through every single decade, and we've been cycling through them every like few years or so. I feel like YA is starting to do the exact same thing. So like now we're in the realism section. That's gonna end up turning into the early 2000s John Green, Sarah Dresden, like romancy style things, but except it's gonna take that realism that we literally just renaissanced in, and it's gonna include that in there, back into the vampire, supernatural, paranormal, and then who knows?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the dystopian ones too, because that was all.
God.
That's also a huge.
I am okay if those stay dead for a couple of years.
What?
Because all of them were getting so derivative of each other after a while.
You literally read Hunger Games, and then every single one after that is almost like.
Yeah, like Hunger Games was the peak.
Yeah.
Divergent was okay, but I never really managed to finish them, and I think people kind of like Maze
I
Runner.
never
I'll throw
actually
them in
got
there.
to read it. I read like Legend.
And then everything else was like a super terrible watered down version of Divergent.
I only remember reading Legend by Marie Lu, and that's the only one that I remember reading besides Hunger Games, which was kind of similar to Divergent, but it was more so like one side was super like corporate, like high military style, and then the other half was like the lower class, and it was like two people from both sides like coming together and like dismantling the whole
and everything
thing.
was like, you get to have one personality trait, or we have outlawed this one basic human emotion. And
I feel like you're reading like Matched at this point.
Matched!
So the whole entire series of Matched was essentially just like you got matched up with somebody.
Yeah, like you don't get to normally fall in love anymore. That's illegal.
You literally just get,
you get
like
a match from a computer, and that tells you like who you get to be with. But of course, our main character
has the love triangle back in there
because she has her match, who she likes. But there's also a different boy who's not her match,
who also likes her back. And so now we have to turn around and go, do we run away? Do we dismantle the system? Do we just go with it?
What if telling people who they can love is bad, except it's still straight?
Also, you can say uglies for the Divergent reboot. We all know what you're talking about.
Wait, I'm a little curious. What's the Divergent reboot?
Uglies is also, I think it's YA?
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, you have the pretties
and the uglies.
Uglies.
There's a lot of plastic surgery.
Yeah. So if you're born with the uglies...
Well, actually, I thought everyone was kind of born ugly.
Yes.
But you got to start having elective plastic surgery at like 15 so you could be hot.
Yes. And literally the series is the uglies, I think there's something in the middle, and then the pretties, and that's like the trilogy or something.
Like that.
And I don't remember exactly
Uglies,
what it is.
pretties, and specials.
Yes.
Because some of them somehow got like cybernetic enhanced powers or something like this. It has been a minute since I've read any of this series.
And it's not good.
They were decent, but it's one of those ones that are like, I feel like they were decent enough when you were like 15 and reading them, but if I went back now, pushing 30 and tried to read them, I don't know if I would enjoy them.
I need to go back and reread, like you mentioned the Maze Runner too. I need to return and reread it, because I can remember the first and second book very clearly.
I got like a chapter into the Maze Runner and I was like, there are no girls in this book, and I stopped reading it.
Yeah, that's usually how that works for me.
There is, eventually.
There is
but
one
it's late
girl
game.
late in the book, and I was not invested in it.
And then you need to get to the second book where there's an equally large number, like a group of women, young girls.
Again, but if you're not pulling me in that first book, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The minute they came up in this little box, like but I also like dystopian as a general rule. Like I can eat it up like every day.
I don't know if this is a thing or if I'm just making things up right now, but I feel like 80s and 90s there was that very heavy, like serialized series fiction, like your Sweet Valley Highs and all of that, where they're just going to write 10 million of these with 6 different ghostwriters and write books. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like after that, like the 2000s, the 2010s. It got very into standalone novels, and I feel like we're having a very big series resurgence renaissance right now.
We're getting a lot of trilogy surgences.
A lot of trilogies, but even like Sarah J. Maas and her like 7-book series and all of those kind of things, which would not have been a thing that happened back in like 2005.
Right.
Like it was a miracle that Stephanie Meyer got 4 books.
Right.
Especially because like if you remember that the original timeline was supposed to be Twilight directly into Breaking Dawn, which would have been a ride.
Listen, her entire thing about, like, I read her, like, original casting for the movies or who she
Oh,
wanted
it's so
to be
2005
cast.
when you read that.
And it's so terrible. I hate it.
It would have been pretty interesting though to see Henry Cavill as Edward. She wanted that specifically.
Okay, let's be honest too. He is a much more delicious individual than I have nothing against Pattinson,
We love you, our Pats, but
Yeah,
still.
but like he looked okay as a younger actor in Cedric Diggory.
Yeah.
But then when he got to the Edward, I'm like, I was expecting
it's
better
because
looking.
they literally make up him up to the point where it's like he's not hot anymore.
All of the makeup and wig work for the vampires was a little ridiculous in the Twilight movies. Let's be
But still, the
clear.
but,
Their contacts were horrible.
But the
Hated
others,
them.
everyone else. Well, okay, Rosalie looked a little. She didn't look as good as she probably could have, but like the others looked. Not Jackson.
Jasper.
Thank you, Jasper. I was
You're
thinking Jackson
welcome.
Rathbone.
Yeah,
That's the actor's name.
But like the others looked good.
Everyone looked okay. I felt like they kept like screwing everyone's wigs. In
They
between.
did.
Like I'm like, okay. The whole point is that their looks don't change. Why does everyone have a different hairstyle?
Listen,
in every single movie?
the first movie, Jackson, his wigs, Jasper's hair, and the whole entire first one, and the second one, absolutely horrible. Like 0 out of 10. What was the costume designer thinking? But then you get to Eclipse where his hair is like parted in the middle and it's just like
Yeah.
waves down. Perfect.
That was good.
Absolutely perfect. But still, their contacts. The gold and red contacts, I hate them.
What do you think, Lord Ish Grant?
On contacts?
No,
No,
these
on
characters.
YA fiction.
Well, YA fiction, but like, yeah, we're derailing. But what do you have a favorite YA book
Well, you know what?
or author?
I have a list of the 100 best YA books written by yada yada yada. Don't care.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
I like that list. I like that list.
Catcher in the Rye, great book.
Oh my.
You're wrong.
Oh, thank you. I was about to like, we're gonna fight years today.
Tuck Everlasting, also good book. I liked that. The Westing Game, that was good. We talked
Okay.
about that last time.
That was kind of why
I feel like both of those, like, I agree that they're excellent books. I would put them more
put
middle
them
grade. But I also feel like they were both kind of written before the middle grade distinction was really a thing.
Yeah.
So,
You could technically.
so I understand.
Yeah.
Would Holes be in that same gray area?
Again, for me, yes.
Yeah.
But since Holes is also kind of pre-middle grade as like a distinct
Genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also a great book. Not disputing that part by any means.
Yeah, here's just kind of an idea to ponder over. It's fun to call it ya fiction as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it like Jamaican fiction? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, fiction.
So Andy,
Yeah,
what's your favorite YA fiction? Do you have one?
I would actually have to be like think about all the books I've ever read. Maybe I need to go into Goodreads and create good labels.
I feel like I've read too much young adult for that to be an answerable question.
I realize Jen literally cannot answer that question because she reads way too much YA fiction.
You can see
for
the
it to be
steam coming out of
legitimate.
my ears as I try to process
Does
that
not
question.
compute.
You literally ask her to create her top 5 and she just falls to the ground.
I in recent memory, and this is pulling because I lack of remembering them all. I really, really like Legendborn.
That is
Tracy Dion.
excellent book. Yes.
That was a really, really, really fun. It hit so many good notes.
Yeah.
Um,
And like how we were kind of saying, like that young adult fantasy renaissance, where yes, it's Arthurian legend. Plenty of people have done that in fiction before, but with the black female main character and then the inclusion of like the root magic and all of that system getting put
That-
into it too. Like, that's such a good, like, updated way to do the story.
Yes. Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of like I don't know specifically how much YA I've written. I know I have written it.
Oh,
Written it, not written it. Read. Read. I haven't read.
You've
nothing.
written so much YA.
Great.
Definitely The Outsiders is up there for me.
Yeah.
A good book.
I forgot we mentioned that again. And the movie's good as well.
And I was going to throw that out there. Like, do we have any young adult adaptations we
I
particularly
do like The Outsiders
Like
for
or
the
dislike?
adaptation.
I did like the film. That was.
It's weird seeing Francis Ford Coppola go from an adult, like crime movie with The Godfather to
Yeah.
doing like a kid's version.
Though YA that's not a YA things that are not books
Okay.
but are movies. Lost Boys and Breakfast Club are definitely like two that you could technically add
Ooh.
because they're both all the characters in there are all some type
those
of
are-
teen
Those are teen movies, quote unquote.
Goonies, that type of thing. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
We like those.
I'm with you.
Fantastic.
It's almost easier to say that one of my least favorite, just because so many people love it and put it on this like top list. I hate Catcher in the Rye.
I get it.
I don't want to erase it from.
I feel like that should be a podcast episode, books we hate the most.
Well, we're
So then Andy can lament about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about this one. Books we hate the most.
I agree. I disliked Catcher in the Rye, but I also feel like I just did not come to it at the right time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think if you read Catcher in the Rye any older than about 22, you're like, ooh, this kid's a lot to handle.
I didn't like it as like a teenager, and then as an adult, I read it again. I'm like,
No, and I didn't read it and like relate to it that much. I just thought it was a good book. I thought it was well written.
it's
Yeah,
not
like, I
it's
think
not
if
bad.
I think if I went back to it and went, okay, let me read this on more of like a sort of scholarly reading, like just reading it for the story level, rather than waiting for Holden to become a person I liked, which was never.
Yeah.
I might get more out of the story on a second read then.
Yeah, and for like a book written, was it the mid-50s or something like that?
Something like that in there.
Something like that. I felt like it definitely holds up.
Yeah, and Holden does feel
style-wise.
young. I will grant you that, like, sometimes you can read a young adult book and it's like, you have not spoken to a teenager in a while. Like, Holden feels like a teenager. I will give you that.
When was this published?
What book?
Excuse me.
Catcher in the Rye.
It is 50-something, but I don't remember when
Book
exactly.
details. Book details.
I literally just had to look up one of my favorite ones.
49.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So it's
Oof.
It felt like modern language almost. Like I mean, modern-ish. I mean,
Yeah.
Was this technically middle grade? No.
oh, in
Yes?
recent memory too. You talk
Maybe?
about. I did like Lord of the Flies.
Yes.
I've not
yes.
I
I love Lord of the Flies.
have yet to read that.
'Cause
I read a take on it.
It's
but I have
literally
not-
how I met my best friend.
Nice. Who is your best friend?
Shout out to Sky, who's probably listening to this on another day.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I have her
Nice.
listening all the time, but we became friends because I literally got obsessed with Lord of the Flies at one point. And then we, like, became all friends because we liked it so much, so.
Thanks.
If that's a fact, I like to hear people talk about it too, because there's always something that I like. Even there's always something new that like some take that other people have that I'm like, wow. And I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Two.
I think I'm good. I'm
Good
saving it for later.
times two.
But yeah,
Okay.
there's always some new take on it that I'm like, no, I would have never thought about that. So it's always fun to.
I just
Think about
lamented
that
about
book.
the allegorical meanings of it.
Yeah.
Whenever I, talked about it in class, everyone's like, stop talking about it already. I'm like, nope, sorry.
Can't do that.
Can't do that. We're discussing it today.
There was a production of it that I saw before where the pigs had.
There's 2 movies of it.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking,
Movies are eh.
I'm trying to think of that. I
We
did
don't
see
care
one that was
about
probably
those.
in the 80s, maybe. Film in the 80s. It
No.
was okay,
90s.
maybe.
Movie was 94. One of them.
It's like 30 years ago almost for me.
The other one was like 63, I think. Don't ask me why I remember that.
A series of unfortunate events. Did anybody else read that? Or-
I'd say that is that middle grade?
I would also, again, call that middle grade, but...
It's good.
Yeah. I'm also not disputing that part either.
Listen, I'm just wondering over the fact why Amazon wants to think that this book is for people 12 years and up, but the main character is going in for her senior year. But that's fine.
Yeah, that's just how they get marketed sometimes.
One of the books that I remember reading a lot was called Oh My Gods.
I remember I just saw that cover flash when you showed your phone to me, and I do remember that cover.
So the story behind it is essentially this girl named Phoebe, and her mom has married a new man, and they're moving to Aegean. They're moving to Greece.
Okay.
And she's going to this high school where she's a runner. She's like a runner person. Turns out all of her classmates are demigods.
Interesting.
And so she seems to be the only person who is like some type of non-demigod, but she like hides it for a bit and tells everybody that she's the daughter of Nike.
Okay.
Because she wears Nike shoes.
Hey, you do what you gotta
to do
do.
her running. And so
That's sound logic.
like that's one of the ones I remember reading the most, and they're marketing for like grade 7 and up, which is okay. but like the main character's definitely like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other one I remember reading the most is Wings by April and Pike, which is your blatant like love triangle paranormal romance that was like 4 books long, 5, 6.
Numbers.
Oh my god, I forgot how many books are in this too.
If I take it back to high school and what I think I was reading all the time, it was
There's 5 of them.
Louise Rennison's Confessions of Georgia Nicholson books.
I read the Sarah Dresden one.
I mean, I read all of Sarah Destin's books too, but like, my friends and I made the Georgia Nicholson books a little bit too much of our personalities when I made them all read it. But they were hilarious. Like, very 15-year-old trying to just bumble her way through life, getting into wildly convoluted, overly dramatic situations.
Mm-hmm.
Though, granted, it is a middle grade. My friends and I also read the Click.
Oh, the Click books.
The Click books were like a series.
If you weren't quite old enough for Gossip Girl, but you wanted all the drama,
I mean,
you
Gossip
read
Girl,
the
like
Click books.
I like went into Gossip Girl eventually, but like the Click was like middle school girls. One girl, she's not so rich, but like
middle school girls dropping more designer names than I, a person close to 30, can still name.
Yeah, and the drama.
The drama.
Like you.
Although, admittedly, do you know how like you read a book and sometimes like weird little things sink into your personality?
Yeah.
So from the Click books, there was the one girl, I think it was Alicia.
Oh no.
Who never ran because she was important enough that you could wait for her to walk to you. And I have actually internalized that. You know what? I'm not going to run to meet you. You can wait for me to take my time to get there.
My friends and I literally fought over who was going to be who in this kid. Because there was 4 of us and there's 4 of them.
Of course.
So we were like, who's going to be who?
Love that for you.
Thanks.
So,
I ended up being Dylan.
what would you say to an adult who's embarrassed to read YA?
Don't be.
Are they being mean about it, or are they genuinely asking you this question?
Like, thank God for Amazon, because, you know, you can just order it and you don't have to see anyone, you know, while you're walking into the YA shelf at Barnes and Nobles.
Okay.
Literally don't
If you're
be.
one of those people who is genuinely self-conscious about it, don't be. They're good for all ages to read. No one is going to card you at the door. Enjoy, embrace what you are reading, and feel good about it. If you are one of those people who feels the need to write a think piece about how no adults should be reading young adult fiction,
You can leave,
I can't say exactly what I want to say to you on an official work podcast.
but you can leave.
We'll have an after-hours podcast and unedited.
Recording it on Discord. No, y'all can leave.
Yeah, I suppose, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
What does that mean? Can you explain?
Is it like your hand in between your fingers?
Yeah.
Listen,
Split up?
TLDR, if you don't want to, like, listen to that whole entire part of the podcast, and you just, like, can I read it or not? Or, like, you know, I'm a little embarrassed to. Don't be. If you want to read YA, go read YA. If you want to read middle grade, go read
Yes.
middle grade.
You
If you
have
want to
our
read a picture book,
Full permission to
go
read
get the picture book off the shelf and go read it. Have
whatever
fun.
level you want to read. I will say that now that I am the adult and teen services librarian and not just the adult services librarian like I was a few years ago, some of the displays I make in the adult fiction section have teen titles on them, and they're just a fun surprise. I'm not telling you which ones are the teen books. You can look at the spine labels and figure that out for yourself.
Off topic a little bit, but when you said the word surprise, I thought about that 89-year-old woman a year ago. Was it during band? We had the read a band book, and it was covered in paper. And I feel like you picked it, but it was about the Dahmer family.
No, that was the Valentine's. That was Blind Date's
Was it?
book.
It was the Indifferent Stars Above, and some old lady started reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I think she talked to you or something.
Like, I remember checking it out. I was like, oh, this will be... She says, yeah, I can't wait to go home and figure out what it is. And I'm like talking to her daughter like she's in for a... But she did come back. She read it.
Okay.
That's all that matters.
She's like, it was interesting.
You're the one who picked it.
But yeah. No, man.
So for this week's Smack, Jen and I have a little, you know, hardcore, we're going with some classic YA love interests here.
I think all characters we may have pulled out at one time or another, but
They're literally all from the same era, too.
Yes,
Like,
but they're not all from the same series like we've been doing previously.
No. So, person number one is, door number one is Mr. Edward Cullen. Welcome, Mr. Edward Cullen.
What is the dating game?
Yes.
Yes.
Edward Cullen.
Number two is Mr. Peter Millark. And then number three is Augustus Waters.
Augustus can die. He's going to anyway.
Drama. Pain.
No, okay, full transparency. He's good. He's good. Peter, you're gone. Like, I get your significance of the story, and I appreciate that you and Katniss shared that trauma together, and I get it. It's beautiful, and I really am happy that it worked out that way. It's taken me years to be able to say that. And
Were you a Gale person?
but I was up until the third book.
Yes.
And
I mean,
for
I think
a very good reason.
I think that's what everyone kind of turned off of being a Gale person, yes.
And I think the PETA factor is Tom Hutcherson?
Josh.
Josh Hutcherson. He bugs me.
Okay.
And I think he's a decent actor in other things. The other two movies he's in.
They
but
literally had to CGI him to be taller. I mean, he's a short king, but they literally had to CGI him to be taller.
Well, we can't unpack all of why Hollywood is wrong right now.
But if I had to choose between the other two, Mary wait, is it? How do you say Augusta?
Gus. Just call him Gus.
Gus. I'm like, wait, what was his real name?
So, what's Gus from?
Mary,
Fault in Our Stars.
Okay.
Mary Gus, Snog Edward.
You know what?
Because I might get a little, other circles, I might be worried about what disease I'm getting from that one night stand. But from him, I might get vampirism. And it doesn't sound
Canonically
bad.
not how that works, but okay.
Well,
Listen,
it could.
I'll marry Edward solely because, one, he has money. But, two, I can go do whatever I want. He's not going to care. So.
Definitely let Gus die, as he's going to anyways.
Ouch, but sure, fair.
Mary Edward as well, I agree, and then I don't know the other person.
From the Hunger Games.
Oh, Hunger Games, yeah.
The
I never
baker.
finished it,
The baker's son.
So I don't care.
Oh, by the way, Grant, do you? Is it mean if I were to call Irish bakers gingerbread men?
No. That's my answer.
Anyone listening in Ireland, let us know.
And I hope Tony sends the first piece of hate mail.
What a twist.
Tony's gonna listen to this on Monday and then email you right away. How dare you?
You are never allowed to do a podcast without me ever again. We are rescheduling the next time that I am ill.
Well, what was the other one I used the other day?
It's gonna go in the group chat, and then we're gonna print out the group chat log to put that on the
Oh
wall.
no, we shouldn't do that.
So a sketchy Irishman the other day tried to sell me what he said was a piece of the Blarney Stone, right?
Yeah.
But it turns out it's fake. I mean, it was a real sham rock.
So next episode, guys.
Can you feel me getting a migraine?
Next episode.
Down.
Is next episode down?
Down.
Yes.
Downtown? What?
Downtown Abbey.
Downtown. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Downtown.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely. Petula Clark, if you don't know the song, you're probably too young.
They
But-
covered it on Glee. You should know it.
Fair? That's fair.
It's literally on one of my favorite workout videos, so therefore I listen to it almost like every other day. I still don't know what the lyrics are. I just know the
You don't.